Welcome to episode 65 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week, as I'm joined most weeks, by my co-host, Doug Griffin.
Hello, Tony, and welcome to Extreme Brewing today. And I'll give my normal weather report. Sunny and not too hot today. The end of the week was horribly humid and hot, and fortunately we got a little relief now. It's got a nice little breeze out there, so it's a wonderful day if you can get outside at all.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the car all day today. I've got a lot of driving, and I'm glad it's not one of those days where it's just going to be brutal. And look, we have a guest, finally. Someone with even less to do than we. And this is our guest, John Talkington.
Hello, everyone.
Say hello. Say hello, John. Hello, John. And he's getting ready to open a meadery in the next 6 months. So we're going to talk to him about his career as a brewer, and then about his plans, his and his partner's plans for the meadery, and what mead, why mead, why here, why now, why mead. Oh, that would have been a good title for this for this story as well. So, welcome. How did you get started? I'm going to look between you and the camera. We're still getting used to having in-studio guests. So, how did you get started with brewing generally, and how did you get into mead?
I got started in brewing probably about 18 years ago. Had friends that were interested in home brewing, and had a teacher in high school that did some home brewing. So I was always kind of fascinated by that. And my grandfather, my dad's dad, he used to make homemade beer all the time, and his bottles would explode. I've heard horror stories about his beer.
Was it bad and exploded, or just bad, or just exploded?
According to my dad, the beer was good. He just didn't leave it sit long enough. He was always impatient.
Bottle bombs.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. And so how does that work? You have to, before you bottle it, you have to leave it sit longer?
Yeah, he wouldn't let it ferment out all the way, and he started bottling it before it was done. I'm sure the sanitation probably wasn't as good either, since they used to do it in an old cellar. Yeah. And
so you started making mead when you weren't old enough to drink when you made mead, right?
No, not the first time. I was in high school. I was probably about 16 years old. Had a science teacher, and she was telling me about this drink called Sima that was low alcohol, and in Finland they let the kids drink it, so they only let it ferment like a day. And it's probably like 1%. And then they would bottle it. You put a couple raisins in the bottle. When the raisins float to the top, it's carbonated and it's ready to drink. And they usually serve it with like funnel cake.
Right.
It's served on May Day over in Finland.
That's pretty cool. And
I think because of that, when the bottles rise, you either got to drink them or get them in the fridge.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll have bottle bombs.
That's the one process that I didn't mention. Is once those raisins get to the top, it has to be refrigerated, or you got grenades on your hands.
I assume the CO2's attached itself to the raisin, and it rises, so you know it's carbonated. Yeah.
And I still make it because the wife loves it, and a lot of my friends.
Yeah, that sounds fun. And so, what's the flavor? What are the ingredients? What does that taste like?
I think the recipe I made in high school was brown sugar, a little bit of honey, and like some regular table sugar. The raisins and lemons, so it was like sliced up lemons. So it kind of reminded you of like a Mike's Hard Lemonade, but a lot better flavor. And I didn't have like brewing yeast then, so we just used like Fleischmann's bread yeast to make it.
So the lemon gives you some tartness, which counteracts some of the sweetness that you have because it's not carbonated. I mean, it's not fully fermented, so you got some sweetness left.
And now, just because I'm curious, because you mentioned Fleischmann's yeast, does that have its own? I mean, I know it has its own flavor, but it must not be great. Is that why people don't use it, or?
Well, there's been a lot of beer and wine made with Fleischmann's yeast.
Right.
Yeah, there certainly has.
Always available.
Yeah.
But does it taste funny, or?
I've done it before, and it got like a little more yeasty flavor. I mean, a lot of the beer yeasts are clean. So are the wine yeast. They're cleaner and add some flavor, but the Fleischmann's yeast just tastes yeastier, like
redwood. It has that yeasty flavor.
Right.
But yeah,
and bread, it's great in wine or beer or mead. It's not as desirable,
But
but
Right.
it works.
I mean, traditionally, like years ago, that's all people had. They didn't
Right.
have all these like 500 different wine yeasts or 500 different ale strains to choose from like
Right.
you do now. And if you wanted to get something fermented, that's what you did. You put your baker's yeast into it. And it's still traditionally used in a lot of beverages. You have like your Finnish Sahti beer, which is a juniper beer, and they still use bread yeast in it.
I wonder. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He brought the kvass here that one time. Jimmy Kroon. Jimmy Kroon. He brought kvass, which is bread beer. I wonder if he used.
He may have.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it traditionally calls for.
That tasted that was a bready flavored beer. That was a nice flavor though. Have you had that?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
It's a good beer. So anyway, I'm sorry. So you start off with this and then you graduate to different meads, or did you go to beer after that? Or
I went to beer first. A homebrew store opened where I grew up in Ohio, and ended up buying a kit. And I think my mom actually got the kit for me. And I started making some, I think my first kit was like a Belgian dark lager beer that I made, and that came out good. And then I had started making recipes out of Charlie Papazian's Complete Joy of Homebrewing. And I've always been kind of fascinated with Nordic mythology and stuff like that. So there was always mead in those stories. And that's kind of where I was like, oh, there's recipes for mead in here. I should probably try this.
Now, what the fascination is the chemistry aspect. What's the fascination
with mead?
With brewing? I mean, I think with mead, but also with brewing. Like, why did your mother think that getting you a homebrew kit was a good gift? What about you said, hey,
maybe all the alcohol he was drinking settled down. Makes mellow, I don't know.
I was a good kid. I think my fascination came from it. It was like the stories in my family. You know, it's like Grandpa made beer. You know, my other grandfather, he was Italian. They made a lot of wine. His family made wine, and I guess it's the chemistry behind it too. It's fascinating that yeast can convert sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide, and just, you know, and then you can make something like drinkable.
Right. Yeah. It was just the thing that started to interest me more and more is like a lot of people are like, well, I wanted to make my own beer, but to come at it from like a very early age, there had to be something a little bit more fascinating. I feel like there would have to be a little bit more fascinating.
Well, the farm that me and my dad used to help out on, they used to grow a lot of apples back probably in the 60s and 70s. And my dad, he helped out on this farm. And even when I was a little kid, we used to go up and help this farmer. And he made something called Applejack. Now, usually Applejack is distilled hard cider, but this stuff was a little different. It was more like a high alcohol cider that they would age in these whiskey barrels. And this old farmer, his name was Warren Morgan. He had barrels in his basement that were dated 1966, 1965. And I remember sitting, you know, as a kid with my dad and him, and Warren would be like, oh, I got something special I want to bring up. He'd come down, he'd fill like a bottle up, and then he'd start giving people glasses. And he'd always give me a little shot glass because my dad said it was okay.
Right.
But ooh, that stuff would knock you. But I think that's probably where it came from, is just like, kind of always being around homemade alcoholic beverages.
It's just part of the culture that he came into. Speaking of Ohio, I just got some Ohio rye mash. My wife brought home from she was in Cincinnati this week, and I'd never had. Have you had rye mash before?
I have not.
It's weird. I'm going to drink a lot. She only brought a little bottle. I'm going to drink a lot of it, but a little bit, a lot, until we were talking about how when you drink something, eventually.
So is it an alcoholic beverage?
Oh yeah, no,
okay.
It's
beer or
it's like
spirits.
Yeah, spirit. It's like a moonshine
almost,
I think, but it's not one of those things in the. It's
like a rye whiskey.
It's I guess rye whiskey that hasn't gone in the bottle. It hasn't gone in the barrel yet. You know what I mean? So it's not. It's clear.
Yeah.
And it's got really, really interesting flavors.
Peppery?
Yeah, I think they have that. They have a pepper in it. That's the other thing. They added a. some sort of pepper. There's a hot pepper in there, a serrano. They added a little serrano pepper in there, but there's also this weird middle flavor that makes it almost sweet.
Sounds interesting.
So if you have the opportunity, it's good.
Cincinnati's becoming a huge brewing area in Ohio.
Yeah, she didn't bring me back any Little King.
That was my favorite.
And so eventually, you're one of you're in the middle of, as far as craft beer. You're in the middle. You're from a time where you could walk up and knock on the door and say, "Hey, I've brewed before. Will you give me a job?"
Yeah.
So you came here and you were working at a hardware store here?
Yeah, I was working for Ace Hardware when I first moved here.
And then you saw that Dogfish was hiring.
Yeah, and I put my application in there. I had, done home brewing for years, worked and helped out at a couple small wineries, so I knew how pumps and hoses and tanks and all that worked. So they hired me.
And so you've been there for 10 years?
Yeah, going on 11. Yeah.
That's crazy. And so now you're getting ready to make this big jump.
Yes. Yep. Time to open up my own meadery. Since
as you do, every time it comes to a point in your life where you're like, okay, now I have to open a meadery. That's not the case. No one says that. So why did you say that?
Well, it's always been a passion of mine. Even when I was home brewing, I was doing a lot of mead, and I guess I just find the beverage fascinating. I mean, it's the world's oldest alcoholic beverage. I mean, there was, cavemen were probably drinking mead, on accident because some water got into the honeycomb and fermented with wild yeast, and there you have it.
Well, one of the things that I put, I don't know if that's an actual beehive, but it looks beehivey enough.
Looks like a wasp.
Yeah, nasty thing.
A wasp hive. But the reason that it's on the website. The reason I put it up is you told me the story about how before they could harvest honey, they would boil those.
Yeah, in ancient times they didn't have centrifuges to spin out the honey from the comb, so the whole hive, the comb, and everything would go into a vessel, and they would rinse it out, and then back then they boiled everything, so the heat would help dissolve the honey and melt the wax. So basically, you had this cauldron with dead bees, pieces of hive, and all that stuff in it, and they would have to strain it out, and then the wild yeast would end up fermenting it because they didn't understand yeast then, but they knew if you'd leave the stuff sit long enough, it would do something, and then you would feel good afterwards.
It was magic.
It was magic, yeah.
I don't know how easy it is to find an undissolved and abandoned, because I'd hate to kill the bees, but I'd like to try that method, get
natural,
the
organic honey.
Yeah. I know that, and I guess so. That's the other thing, because you're going to be working with apiaries.
Apiaries. Yep.
And so I know that sometimes they get called out. Like, I have this beehive, and they remove the beehive for free. They keep the bees. And the honey and all that.
Or sometimes we actually have a swarm where a queen and some of the worker bees have decided to leave.
Right.
Because we get 2 queens now, and generally you only have 1. So we've had swarms at our place before, and it's hard to find somebody who'll come right away because it's got to be quick. Trying to find somebody, and the next day it was gone. It's just, they've gone someplace else looking for a place to live.
But that would be that's what, if I were you, or I'm asking you to do this. Tell them, say, give me a hive. Let's boil it up and see what it tasted like with literally not bit of honeycomb in it.
Yeah, I've did some similar meads, but not actually thrown the hive in there. But it had the bee pollen, it had the propolis, it had the honeycomb in it, and it definitely, if you're a beekeeper, you know what I'm talking about. But it definitely has this hive flavor to it, because a beehive has like a weird, sweet, musty smell to it.
Yeah,
I've never been around bees.
I was going to say dusty, but I'll take musty. It's got that little bit of
like.
You can taste it when you go like this. That's how you put that. For those of you who are listening, because we have listeners again now, you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and then blow out your nose. That's how you get that flavor. And And so you have a partner. How did you meet your partner, and how did you guys decide that you wanted to?
My partner, his name's Robert Walker. We call him JR. He grew up very similar. He's originally from Pennsylvania, though. We've been friends for 5 or 6 years now, and he works at the same place I do. But I think he was originally working at a liquor store in Lewis at the time, and we just became friends. And I've been talking about doing this for years, and he's kind of been pushing me. So he was like, he goes, "You make really good mead." He goes, and he said, "I have a little background in business," and he said, "I'd love to help you out with this." So we teamed up, and we're trying to open up a meadery here.
Yeah.
And
so you have to you have to go and find a place, and you got like financing, or what has the financing on this gonna work?
Yeah, we have a couple good friends that are putting a lot of faith in us and giving us some investment money. So, and we met a gentleman locally who he owns a lot of land on Route 9, 404, like heading into Lewis, and he had some land available for us. So he's going to put up a building for us, and we're going to lease it off him.
That's cool, and it's not far from the Extreme Brewing in.
Yeah, it's just right down the road.
Right.
Yep.
In Lewis. Yeah.
In Lewis, yes.
Yeah.
And did you say there was a Kickstarter, or is that someone else?
Yes, we have a Kickstarter. It was filmed a few weeks ago. Our guy that did the filming, he's kind of busy moving right now, so when he gets to do the editing and all that. And
all right, so it's not
yeah, so it's not completely set up yet, but we do have a Kickstarter. It should be online probably in August or so.
And how much you're looking to raise on the Kickstarter?
We're asking for $15,000.
Well, that's not unreasonable.
No, we just needed some extra money to get the ingredients and some of the equipment we need, and we're going through a local bank here to get a small business loan as well.
And how much different is talking about the meadery equipment than, say, a brewery equipment or winery equipment? Because you were talking to me earlier in the pre-interview about the difference, like federally you're a winery, and in the state of Delaware you're a brewery.
Yeah, Delaware is kind of odd with the laws where mead is put in there. So you have like craft brewing, mead, and cider all fall under one umbrella. So in the state, we're considered a brewery, even though federally we're a winery. So not sure how that works, but but in most other states, meadery is an agricultural wine.
Mm-hmm. There was another part to that question, though. How do you feel like you're going to be able to find like people to come? Like how else are you going to be able to get your name out there? I mean, there's plenty of drive-by traffic in the summer, so that can't hurt.
Yeah, we're on a pretty busy road there. So I mean, we did a traffic study. Summertime, you get about 60,000 cars a week. So we're in a really good location. But I think it's because mead's actually popular right now. I mean, for years and years, like you'd say, people would say, "What's mead?" Oh, that's that dark medieval beer or whatever. Yeah. No, it's like, no, it's a really elegant honey wine. If made right, it can be like a champagne, it can be like a port, it can be, depending on what it's flavored with, it can,
I had the pear one, and I tell you, there weren't a lot of people. Nobody hated it, but there were people who loved it, and then there were people who were like, but I was in the love it section. You could taste, like, if I don't want to get too precious about it, but like you could taste the pear skin, like the skin part of the pear. You got a little bit of that.
Yeah, the tannins from the pear.
which I really enjoyed, and it confused me because it looks so much like wine, and it doesn't taste at all like wine. And I think that threw a lot of people. They're like, oh, that's just. But you were saying that you were going to do something with the ambiance to make it a little bit more mead hall-y.
Yeah, yeah. Our decor is gonna, look like a Scandinavian mead hall. So think back to Beowulf, or something like that. Going to do a lot of like hardwood, a lot of carvings, probably some furs, kind of Viking decorations,
Right.
stuff like
But
that.
not pewter cups. I bet they're
No,
they're hard to
no,
clean.
no, we're not, no pewter cups. We're actually we'll probably have actual horn mugs.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So I actually do that, as a little side business. So I do like Viking drinking horns, and I custom make a lot of that stuff. So
And are those made from proper horns, or are those made from wood?
no, they're made from cow horn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool. And how do you? I mean, I guess a farmer or something. How do you get them, and how do you make them into?
I order them online. There's a couple like sites where you can buy cow horns. So they're.
Of course there are. Of course there are.
Yeah.
And what do you have to shape them? Do you have to sand them?
Well, if it's just a horn, I don't have to shape it. So I just have to smooth it and clean the insides and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually coat the inside with beeswax, so it kind of smells like honey when you're drinking out of it.
Oh, that's cool.
The horn mugs, those have to be cut and heated and shaped and all that. So they're a little harder to make.
And when you so you expect to actually serve out of those on the at the?
Yeah, we'll probably have like some sort of mug club where
Uh-huh.
just members will come in, and the other peoples will be drinking out of
But
their
they
wine
can't ask
glasses.
politely. Can't ask politely for it, right? You'd be like,
Oh, we'll have them in the merchandise area.
no, but I mean, like if I was in the mug club, I couldn't come in and say, "Oh, could I have number 37?" They'd be like, 37
Yeah.
now, something like that.
Maybe.
Why am I still not drinking? Something. You there? Point with a crappy finger. That's very, very cool. Well, we're running up against the
He's
clock.
got some really good ideas for you.
Yeah.
I am excellent at figuring out stuff other people should do. That's kind of my skill.
You got to have a character on board who does all these things so that tourists come in.
You're hired, Tony.
Throws a dead deer on off the shoulder, like poof. My mead. But we'll have you back when it's closer, and we'll talk about it some more. We are running up against the clock, so we want to say our goodbyes.
Just
please.
a side note to note, Jay has been doing some education, part of our educational program. We try to get him here once a year to do a mead class.
Oh, that would be
So,
cool. Well, definitely we'll
We've been
promote the
doing that
mead.
for probably like 6 years.
Yeah,
6 years.
Do you do that? Is that a fall thing or?
Generally spring?
Yeah, we're doing it in the
February,
spring.
March,
Yeah.
sometime.
Well, do we have classes coming up? Any classes?
None at this point. We had all grain last Saturday, and the previous week we had a extract brew class. I was at last night over at Writing's Development, which is over outside of Lewis. I had a class last night for their homeowners association. Had 25 attending. So,
Oh, that's fantastic.
so we're trying to do some custom classes right now, just because it's hard to get people here because there's so much going on.
Right, and
But we'll start up regular classes again in September.
yeah, that's very cool. And so, how do you go? Do you just call the directors of these places and say, "Hey"?
No, somebody actually called. It was
Really?
a customer of the Lewis store, asked if we would be interested in doing a demonstration of home brewing. I said, sure, no problem.
That is very
We got a
cool.
great turnout for summertime.
The other thing we want to talk about real quick is the competition that you guys are doing with Third Wave.
Yes. We've got forums. You got to sign up soon.
They're having a homebrew competition.
Yes.
and it'll be
your beer-
judged.
And it'll be judged, and your beer first place winner will be brewed at Third Wave. So.
And the one last year, it was as we came to find out, an expensive beer to make, but it was very good. Did you have that the
I
maple
tasted
syrup
the
one?
sample, but I never got down for the actual beer. So,
And
but you can come here to get entry forms or go to Third Wave.
and when is the beer due?
It's on the entry form.
Oh, all right.
Sorry, I can't remember.
That's okay, but it's soon. It's in the next month or so.
Yes, and we're giving some gift certificates as well as they're giving, I think, merchandise as the second place is a gift certificate from us, and third place is merchandise from them. But first place is the main thing, to get your beer brewed.
Very cool.
At
And
Third Wave.
there is something like that. The winner from last year, they actually continued to brew. They changed the recipe a little bit because he was using organic maple syrup, and that's just to make whatever 300 gallons of that.
If you pay more for it.
That's expensive. So they used it different, but it still tasted fine. It's called Log Jammer, I think.
Yeah.
or what are the lumberjack or something? I don't know. It was good. I don't know if it'll be back. So websites and things like that, BrimmingHornMeadery.com.
Yeah, BrimmingHornMeadery.com.
And
we have a Facebook page as well. So just type in the Brimming Meadery, and it should come up for you.
Very cool. And there'll be more about this on surecraftbeer.com, where I will be writing a blog about this today. And you can find all of those things, links to the beerwithstrangers.com website and to the State of the Beer website at the Extreme Brewing website under everything else. So that's extremebrewing.com. With or without the E, it's going to work. And then on the right side, click on everything else. And you can get to us. Follow us on all of the social media you're least likely to ignore, and you can find that there as well. But we're going to call it a week for this week. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week.